Here we go, heading out into New York City for an evening ride, just a couple of miles. I left work a little early today because the light is really beautiful this afternoon. I rode down 11th Avenue from the Upper West Side all the way down to here. We're on 20th Street, and there were bright, billowy clouds moving across the horizon, backlit by the sun, which they were covering up. It was really remarkable. The sun is now set, or mostly set, but there's still just a little bit of a hint of light, and so I wanted to take a ride and see if I can capture some of that in the camera. We'll cut down Fifth Avenue here and then back out to the West Side Highway where so you can see a little of that. There's in the distance the top of the World Trade Center tower with a cloud right up behind it. I wonder how well that shows up for you. Anyway, I'll go down to 14th Street and then we'll cut across to the West Side Highway, and we can get a little bit of the last of the setting sun's light as we head downtown. In terms of the bike, no trouble. The last few days, I'm just back from a 200-mile round trip to Philadelphia last week, which went just fine. It was the longest I'd done so far on this bike. I had saddlebags on the back because it was an overnight trip. The bike itself handled just fine. I went down on the U.S. highways on US 1 and US 130 and came back on 295, the interstate, the freeway, because by then I was comfortable enough with the bike that I felt like I could manage it on the highway. These Royal Enfields do better at 55 or 60 miles an hour than they do at 70, but I don't really want to go 70 anyway. I've got nothing to prove. I'm not trying to win a race. If you buy a bike like this, a Royal Enfield, it's because you like the ride more than because you're trying to get somewhere fast. The roughest part of that ride was the wind on the bridges. It was very breezy the day, especially the day I rode down, and I don't like, even in a car, I don't like the turnpike up here near the city. So I headed south by looping around through Brooklyn and south to the Verrazano-Narrows bridge and across Staten Island. And from there, you can head down the west side of Staten Island to the Outer Bridge Crossing, the last bridge in New York City, which is actually, it's still in New York City, but it's like a 45-minute drive. You're quite a long distance from your starting point by then, and you're still in the city limits. But anyway, riding across the Verrazano, which I think at the time it was built was the longest bridge of its kind ever built. It's very high up and very windy, and windy enough that I felt my head being buffeted around in this full-face helmet, and I wouldn't say I had to fight to keep control of the bike, because I never felt like I was going to lose control, but I was very aware that I was riding through gusty winds that were cutting sideways across my path and jerking the bike around. It was the first time that I'd ever ridden the motorcycle on the upper deck of the Verrazano, which is totally exposed. In the past, I'd ridden a couple of times across the lower deck, but even the lower deck has its wind problems. The wind is just filtered through apertures, on the on the bridge. So you get buffeted and then it stops, and then buffeted and then it stops over and over and over and over and over. And in some ways, riding across the top deck with a steady wind is preferable. There across the street, that 3-story, bright lit up building with the windows of the Apple store here at 14th Street and 9th Avenue in the meatpacking district. Some cobbles here. I don't know what cobblestones do to traction. I'm always careful. Although, as long as they're dry, I don't really notice any diminution in traction. So we're coming up here to the West Side Highway. That small building right across the street there with the truck passing in front of it, that's the Liberty Hotel, which I've assumed has to be an hourly hotel, because who would stay here in this location surrounded by traffic? And we're right here, right along West Street, where most of the traffic is long distance commuter traffic heading north to the Lincoln Tunnel or the George Washington Bridge. Very strange the way the city routes you here. Oh, look right there. That's the new Whitney Museum under construction. They're moving downtown into this new building. The first time I was in this neighborhood, maybe 15 years ago, it was actually still a neighborhood of warehouses and meatpacking. It's all a playland now, like so much of New York. I take that back. Oh, there we go. So the tall building in the distance with the crane on top is One World Trade Center, the new tower, which is mostly built and mostly skinned. I don't know when the opening time is. And there's Jersey City. Going home this way is a little out of the way, but you get up a little more speed. And I'm not a speed demon at all. I'm going 40 miles an hour, but it's less stop and go. And if the lights are with you, you can cruise on along. Could cut left here across Canal Street, but instead we'll keep going down and around under the tip of Manhattan and come up Fulton Street. So there's the World Trade Tower, World Trade Center tower right in front of us, and over to the right, Battery Park City. Just west of us, Tribeca. That's BMCC, Borough of Manhattan Community College. It's a big, ugly 1978 looking building, maybe 1980. I heard a proposal floated a couple of weeks ago to convert the Farley post office across from Penn Station into a classroom space and move BMCC in there above a new Penn Station terminal, and then free up this space for classier development, which I don't think is a terrible idea, actually. I think BMCC would have more cachet if it seemed like it were in the middle of everything. This neighborhood, a lot of people think of it as not really central, even though those of us who live down here love it because we're on top of every subway in the city. It's a little congested here because there's the tower. It's a little congested here because the Battery Tunnel entrance is just ahead. But once we get past that, it clears up and we can head into the tunnel that takes us around to the west side. Pedestrian bridge here that takes people from the World Trade Center area to the World Financial Center on the right. And there on the left is the World Trade Center site from the back side. So here's the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel entrance, or the Hugh L. Carey Tunnel, as it's now called. But we're being waved past a red light by a police officer. We're going to move on ahead and go into the underpass under Battery Park. Our way is blocked by a bus and by a stretch limousine, but when they clear out of the way, wow, that's a lot of congestion in this tunnel. It's almost worth going around.